let's go ahead and begin. My name is Beth Bando, and I'm the Education Director and the Chair of the Creatives Working Group. I'm going to be facilitating the meeting tonight. And I would like to introduce you to our co-chair, Brian Hassenbauer, who's going to be doing our land acknowledgement. Brian?
Great, yes. We at the Climate Reality Dallas-Fort Worth chapter acknowledge the ongoing harm caused by colonialism and white supremacy perpetrated in Texas. Indigenous communities have suffered genocides and forced removals from their lands. We recognize that we are all standing on lands stolen from Indigenous people, particularly those of Kickapoo, Wichita, Tawakoni, Lomanos, and Comanche in the DFW areas. We are committed to cultivating mindfulness around the history of Native lands and communities through continuous education, participation, and active listening. And on behalf of the chapter and the co-chair, welcome to our Earth Month meeting.
Thank you, Brian. And for our community ground rules, I'd like to introduce Chip Pitts, who is a member at large on the executive committee. Chip?
Thanks, Beth. I think most of you are familiar with these ground rules. They're basically to facilitate respectful communication. The first one being make space or take space. In other words, we're trying to limit time to like 2 minutes. And if you have a very limited point, I guess you could do this, which says, I can build on your point very briefly, but that's make space or take space. Let's try to speak from the I perspective, so personal experience instead of broad generalizations that may not accord with everyone's experience. Practice active listening and seek to understand before being understood. Assume good intentions, good faith, respect one another's space, time, and interest. Be willing, though, to be uncomfortable, to be challenged, to be out of your comfort zone. It's a route to growth and learning. Be open to productive discomfort, in other words. It's good to remember that intent does not negate impact. So you could have a good intent, but hurt someone's feelings without intending to do so. So be mindful of that. Disagree without discord. We certainly need more civility in our society, especially when we've got a movie blockbuster opening this weekend, or already opened, I think, called Civil War. Personal attacks and labeling have no place in our chapter, and accept that there's no quick fix, that this is a marathon, not a sprint. We've got a lot of work to do individually and collectively on these challenging issues.
Thank you, Chip. And the agenda for the evening is posted in the chat. It's the very first post on the top. And before we continue, I see that there are a couple of other people that I think are new people that have come in. Andrea and Luisa, would you like to introduce yourselves? You don't have to, but you're certainly welcome to, and we'd love to get to know you. All righty. I shall continue then with an opening from the Creatives Working Group.
Hey, Beth,
yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I'm not seeing the agenda in the chat. It's maybe that I came on the meeting after you posted it. I'm not sure. Can other people see it?
Let me do a double check.
Can other people see it? Because
yeah, it's
no,
up at the top. It's the first one that I posted at 6:43.
Hey, Beth, if those people who joined after you posted it, they will not see. So could you please do it
see. All
again?
Right, let me, I can fix that. Just a moment, please.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, quite all right. Quite all right. There it is. Okay. And so our opening focus is the gift of vision. And that's seeing all the beauty of the season, seeing with these two eyes, and seeing with that other one, the invisible eye, and giving gratitude for all of the beauty within us and all around us. Just like the solar eclipse last week, gave us a kind of celestial chiropractic adjustment, if you will, a kind of an alignment adjustment. We can use the gift of inner vision to do the same thing and renew ourselves and ask ourselves individually and as a collective, how am I doing as an environmentalist? What are my strengths? What am I doing really well? What's working? And to also ask ourselves individually and as a collective, well, what are our weaknesses? In looking at the weaknesses, we can then ask, ooh, what can we tweak? And where do we fall into that oh so human pattern of, oh, someone else will do it. Isn't someone else doing it? So that we can ask ourselves how we can be that someone else in our individual lives, at home, in a group. And through this, we can constantly be growing and evolving as environmentalists, just like the trees and the plants are constantly growing and evolving. So we breathe in the gratitude for being able to see the beauty in the world, the trees, the blossoming flowers, the colors. And we give gratitude for this gift of seeing in. And with that, we will continue with our meeting. And I would like to introduce you to Lauren Cole, who is our membership director, who's going to be introducing our speaker for the evening. Lauren.
Thanks, Beth. That was lovely. Everyone hear me okay? Good. Looks like the agenda is in the chat now, so everyone's able to see that. All right, so I wanted to take a minute and introduce our speaker for today. We're very excited to have Adriana Kao on. She actually spoke with us last summer, spoke with a few of us from the group and had an incredible presentation, very informative. So I'm hoping she has some of that prepared for us today as well. A little blurb on Adriana. She is the founder and owner of Usefull. This is the first refillable and zero waste shop in Dallas-Fort Worth. So the purpose of her shop is to help consumers reduce their plastic waste by offering refills of soap, shampoos, lotions, and everyday essentials. As we all know, plastic pollution is one of the biggest crises that humanity is facing. And it was Adriana's own sustainability journey that led her to start her company when she didn't find anywhere in Dallas to refill. Usefull is a culmination of Adriana's dream to run a business that brings a positive impact to the world. And she's passionate about helping people and businesses become better stewards of the earth. In addition to running her business, Adriana is very knowledgeable on the subject of plastic waste and is here today to share some information with us. The myth of plastic recycling is the subject of her talk. Just like big oil knew back in the 80s that CO2 trapped climate warming greenhouse gases, big plastics, which also includes the oil industry, also knew decades ago that plastic recycling would never work as a real solution to plastic disposal problem. Nonetheless, they pushed it and sold it to consumers. So she's here today to elaborate more on that and how the plastic industry has become a perpetrator and one of the biggest lies of the modern era. So,
thank you.
Adriana,
Thank you, Laura.
we're so happy to have you.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Hi, Lauren. Good to see you again. And great to see we have a nice gathering. And I really love those remarks and those reminders earlier. And that was very refreshing because I don't often hear that in my circle. So that was very nice. So thank you all for starting off with that. So yes, per Lauren's introduction, they had asked me if I wanted to come and participate in an Earth Day themed, obviously, talk. And so my thing is plastic, and my friends are sick of hearing about it. So I'm gonna talk about it with another group of people, you guys. I wanted to keep this very conversational, very casual. So I don't have a very fancy PowerPoint prepared. I do have something that's very rudimentary because I wanted us to focus on talking to each other, ask questions, exchange ideas versus looking at fancy things on a screen. So let me see if I can share my screen. Oh, host disabled participant screen sharing.
All right, now,
Beth, can you?
yes. I'm not the host, and our host, the person, do you have it yet? Can anybody give her permission, please? Our tech person that's normally here, Adriana, is not here right now.
Okay, I should have given you a heads up about wanting to share something.
It's our fault, Adriana. Could somebody text Jigna, please?
Okay.
I know
Until we
Pradeep
get
is out
that
of
set
town.
up, until we get that, and if we can't share, it's not the end of the world. I just had some like pictures that was more interesting to see than just staring at my face. But let me start, because I know this group is probably more knowledgeable than the average person around obviously climate, but also around plastic. So let me ask, how many, or who knows, somebody tell me why plastics is related to our current climate crisis.
Yeah, I can take a pass at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, as the former chair of our plastics working group, we know that fossil fuels are one of the largest creators, of course, of plastics. And from what we've studied and learned is that the fossil fuel industry thinks that plastics is their last best chance of being sustainable as far as their profits and continuing what they do. And comes into what we're trying to do with climate reality is that it's, really dirty. It's creating a lot of pollution and such, creating them. So that's kind of how it ties in with fossil fuels.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And you said it beautifully, much better than I could have. So thank you for that. Is anybody surprised to learn that plastic is made from fossil fuels, oil and natural gas? Is that new to anybody? And it's okay if it is, because there's a reason why it's not widely publicized, because precisely that the oil and gas companies had accumulated monster profits from selling us gas for our vehicles. And now with the growth of the electric car industry, which has its own problems, but for the oil industry, it has represented a big decrease in cars becoming just in general more efficient as far as fuel. Back in the back in the 60s, whatever, many years ago, the plastics component of oil and gas companies was single-digit percentage. And now it's grown to more than double digit, 25, 30%. And they expect it to be the main way for them to sell oil and gas in the future, because the electric vehicle growth is not slowing down. In fact, we can see that government, including the current administration, is encouraging it. So definitely the oil and gas companies are really pushing the use of single-use plastic and the growth of plastic, because that's really their last cash cow, so to say. So that's a really important reason why the climate movement in general, both locally but worldwide, is really bringing up the issue of plastics. And in fact, I'm going to mention later that there is something called the Global Plastics Treaty, which is supported by climate advocates as well. So you guys know this, but again, a lot of people don't. And so the first kind of like talking point, if people want to learn why plastic, in addition to the solid waste problem, but why it's connected to climate change, is that it's made from oil. And in fact, 99% of it is made from oil, because I have heard people say, oh no, but now we have bioplastics. Things are being made from plants and corn and papaya and avocado, whatever. So there's a couple of answers to that, a two-pronged answer. The first answer is yes, but that makes up an incredibly small percentage, like 1% or less. And the second one is that plastic is not just fossil fuel. It has literally thousands of extra chemicals to make it what it is, to make it transparent, to make it resistant, to make it stretchy, to make it hard, to make it, all that. All those are chemicals put in it. So even if the raw material comes from, let's say, corn, it still has to go through a very intensive chemical and very polluting process for it to end up looking like the plastic that we're used to. So I tell people, if it looks like plastic, it is plastic, even if it has a percentage of raw material that came from natural sources. So there's a whole bunch I can go into that with bioplastics. And I know Beth and Lauren had something to say about bioplastics at the end, and we can look at that towards the end. But the point is, 99% of plastics that we use are made from fossil fuels, and that's the connection to climate change. So what I wanted to focus today on was the myth of recycling, because that's the other thing that people tell me whenever I tell, including family members, when I told them I was starting this business, the first thing people tell me is, oh, I recycle. And when I hear that, I have such conflicting feelings, because I think they want like a pat on the back or an applause, like, yes, you're environmental, you're doing a good job. But really, because I know what I know, I really want to say, like, do you really think that's going to change the world? But I don't want to say that, because that's discouraging and it's not, uplifting for people. So, but I do think it's very important for us to learn and spread the message of why plastic recycling is a myth and a fraud. Plastic recycling, not all recycling. And let me just say up front that recycling does work for glass, metal, aluminum. Those things are infinitely recyclable. So if you have that at home, please, I beg you, please do recycle them, because we're literally running out of sand to make glass. Things that are recyclable and have a kind of finite life are cardboard, paper, but it's still very valuable to recycle. And then other things like your cell phone, it has precious metals in it that they rescue and we can reuse. The only one that is really not, I'm not going to say not worth recycling, because then people, like kind of shift their thought and all that. But we need to learn the truth about plastic recycling. So did we fix the sharing issue yet or not yet?
I do have a suggestion, Adriana, if you wanted to put
Yes.
if you had a PowerPoint or document, you could put it in the chat and we could all kind of read through it together.
Oh, okay, sure. Let me do that
Thank
real
you,
quick.
Lauren.
And while I do that, any question, comment, and I want to take questions as they come along. So any comment or question so far?
Yes, Adriana, hi, I'm Michael. And my question,
Hi, Michael.
we're going to talk about substitutes for plastic consumer packaging, because you mentioned some minor ingredients, but my question's more about wholesale, new and different products that are not any longer petroleum based, because there's a terrible ad on TV about, it shows you all these things, and it shows that if we take away oil and gas, we have nothing left in our world, because it suggests this is the only way to have stuff. So there's all kinds of alternatives, probably for almost everything made, petrochemical / plastic. So if you can speak to that replacement industry that's creating things that are sustainable, compostable, whatever it may be, that would be really interesting to hear, because that is the truth, I believe, and I just don't know exactly where it is. And it may depend on what markets we're speaking of. But if that's part of what you're going to share, I'd love to hear a little bit about that. Thank you.
Okay, sure. That is very interesting, and I will say upfront that I'm not an expert on some of these new things coming up. I'm sure there's valuable replacements, but the ones that I'm more familiar with are still the OG things like glass and wood and stuff. But if we can address that a little bit later. Let me see if I can put this up. Give me a second here.
Yeah, while you're doing
Okay.
that, at the training, the national training, they talked a lot about one of our biggest obstacles we're focusing on is the disinformation and greenwashing, and the myth of plastic recycling was right up there. It's just one of the tactics the fossil fuel industry used. So I just am becoming more and more aware. As you said, people think they're doing the right thing, and they said, I remember hearing something like they made an intentional drive to give people their own, make people feel they're responsible. And the fossil fuel industry created the term carbon footprint because they wanted us to, we should control how much we're creating the damage in the world and kind of distract from the real issue. So that's part of the whole plastic recycling.
Yes, exactly. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Sorry, and what's your name?
I'm Jan, sorry.
Jan, yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that because when I heard that it was the fossil fuel industry that invented this term, our carbon footprint, I wasn't surprised, but I was still a little bit not shocked. I wasn't shocked, but I was surprised. Yeah, that's the way to say it, because we use it so much. But that's exactly what happened with management of solid waste and then recycling. But let me go back to that commercial that Mike mentioned. I saw that on TV, and when I saw it, I was so incensed. Like I think working out at the gym, and I literally wanted to like scream and hit something. That's paid by energy companies, and by energy companies I mean fossil fuel and natural gas. And they're basically saying, look, we're making your world so much better. How can you blame us for polluting and choking our world in plastic? That advertisement is so full of greenwashing. You could have a freaking semester of greenwashing on it. But all I want to say is don't believe everything they say in that ad. It's a lot of fear mongering. It's a lot of pushing off responsibility. It's a lot of misinformation. And yes, of course, we've gone to a point in our modern life that we cannot go without certain materials, including plastic. And plastic has made a lot of modern industries possible: computer, medicine, transportation. Yes, so obviously, I'm not saying let's go back to the Stone Age, and nobody in the climate advocacy group or plastics anti-plastics group is saying that. What we're saying is there's a lot of single-use plastic that we need to get rid of. The plastic that we do need, yes, of course, let's use that. Obviously, if we need needles, freaking use needles. But we don't need a straw for everything. That's what we're saying. So what that ad is misleading is saying, are you gonna take away my computer chip, which is on the plastic? Are you gonna take away my my car parts that make cars possible? No. So that's the greenwashing part. So that's an excellent example of greenwashing. We should do like a session of like pick out the greenwashing in that ad. But anyway, so I sent via PDF, and it's just a few slides, but we can jump into it, and you'll see I have some notes at the bottom, but it's mainly some pictures and some illustrations. So my theme today is taken from a lot of reports, but the most recent report that is very comprehensive was put out by this group called Center for Climate Integrity, and some of you might know them. And their report is called "The Fraud of Plastic Recycling: How Big Oil and Plastic Industry Deceived the Public for Decades and Caused the Plastic Waste Crisis." So if you go to their website, you can see, you can actually access their documents as well as the report. It's fairly, a lot of words, very dense. but a lot of other outlets have picked up on this, including NPR. And there's already been a lot of reports on how plastic recycling doesn't work. A lot of news outlets, including NPR. I think one of the major news outlets, either NBC or CBS, they put trackers in like plastic bags or something to see where it ended up. So this is not a new report, but it does build on what's existing, and they've dug up some new things. So just like the big oil knew about heat trapping gases, this is exactly the same playbook that they brought to recycling. In fact, this could have predated the carbon CO2 and the greenhouse gas and climate change and all that, because plastic actually came a lot before that, long before that. So in the early days of recycling, plastic makers, which are chemical companies, including DuPont, including 3M, and oil and gas companies, they knew that plastic recycling would not work. And still they decided consciously, this is the thing that I think people need to know. They decided consciously to push this myth because they realized that selling the idea of recycling was really the aim, and that was really what was going to work. So if they could convince people that recycling works, they didn't actually have to make recycling work. They just had to convince you it works. So that's why when people tell me, I recycle, this is their biggest success story, is people think recycling works. So going to the second slide, the other thing that we have to remember is that this throwaway culture that we have, it really was fueled by the oil and plastic industry once plastic came on the scene. And the reason why we can throw away plastic is because it's very cheap. And the reason why it's very cheap is because, you guys should know this, why is oil cheap?
Subsidies.
Subsidized.
Yes, because it's subsidized by the government. Yes. And so that's why they came up with this material that was much cheaper to produce the first time around versus glass, versus ceramic, versus metal, versus aluminum, versus all these things. So as you can see, this is a pamphlet that was distributed in 1959. This is how early they started brainwashing society around the idea that plastics should be thrown away. And of course, they're made to be thrown away. So think about this. Glass was always made to be used again and again. So they made plastic badly, because nowadays people might say, well, I can't use my plastic bag more than a couple times because it tears. Yes, it tears because they made it that way. They made it purposely so that it's a freaking crappy product. So we'd have to, throw it away because it breaks easily. So the throwaway culture that we don't think twice about, that most people don't think twice about today, is not a right, and it's not a thing that we've always lived with. It's really a cultural phenomenon that was cultivated, it was promoted and encouraged by certain industries. In fact, if we talk to our grandparents, if we still have the blessing of our grandparents being around, most of us, we have grandparents who grew up not throwing stuff away. And if we ask them, what kind of razors they use the metal reusable, proper safety razors. And what kind of, what did they use for their milk? It came in glass and it was given back, to the milk guy. In fact, I grew up in Ecuador, in South America. And even when I was growing up in the 80s, we bought Coca-Cola bottles in glass. And I remember every little corner store would take back your glass bottles, and they would give it back to the distributor, who would clean it, and then they would sell glass bottles again. And it was only in the late 90s that Coca-Cola phased out using glass worldwide. I think it was a little earlier in the US, but worldwide. So even in my lifetime, I remember using glass as the standard. So it's not that long ago that we lived in a culture where we had materials that were meant to be reused. So this is one of the, again, big brainwashing schemes that the oil and gas and petrochemical industries were very successful, is making us so used to and so comfortable with throwing stuff away without thinking twice. And this has permeated other industries, including the clothing industry, and now even all industries have really been piggybacked on this, right? Because then they can sell us more crap. So one of the basic issues with recycling that the industry knew from the very beginning, because they make the stuff, is the economics. So the plastic, because of the oil subsidies, are so cheap to make. And actually recycling, meaning putting plastic through the process of cleaning, of shredding, of reconstituting that, is actually much more expensive and resource intensive than just making new plastic. And they knew this from the very beginning, and yet they still sold us on recycling, right? So when people say, well, but I see all these recycling bins and people are recycling, and schools are teaching kids how to recycle plastic, but the underlying thing is that economically there's no one buying the recycled product because it's more expensive and the quality is less than the new plastic. So even if we do everything as consumers, even if we actually threw everything correctly in recycling bins and all that, the fact is there's no down market for plastic, recycled plastic. There's very little down market. Okay, so remember that. So who's behind the recycling campaigns? You might be a little bit heartbroken, because I was, when I found out that the entity and the movement called Keep America Beautiful was actually created and promoted initially by the beverage industries, Coca-Cola and Pepsi. So if you want on your own time, you can click on the links and look at this very initial campaign, where in 1961, so this was not recycling, but what the beverage companies did back then, which is the same thing as the whole carbon footprint, is they convinced the public that disposing of trash is our responsibility and not their responsibility. So they pushed it onto consumers, which then made it easier later on in the 80s and 90s to push recycling on to consumers. So this old school, advertisement is fun to look at, just to see, like how marketing was done back then. But that's one of the things that they did very successfully, and they poured billions into this. And now Keep America Beautiful is doing good things. I'm not saying that the organization is not worth supporting, but I'm saying that the start of the organization was for beverage companies to push the responsibility onto consumers. And then for recycling campaigns, like I said, because we already thought that we're the ones responsible for all this trash and not the producers, then they were able to say, oh, so now remember, you have to throw stuff, you have to throw your trash in the correct bins. Now you have to recycle too, because this plastic bottle is gold mine, is very valuable. And this ad right here, can you guys guess this ad promoting recycling from the 1990s? If you click on the link, you'll see who's responsible for it. But guess who was responsible for that particular ad? Any guesses? Type it in or say it out loud. Who was
Exxon.
promoting recycling? Who?
Coke.
Exxon, that's a good guess. It's not
Coca-Cola.
Exxon. Say that.
Oh, Was it the cities so they could reduce the landfill usage?
No, it wasn't the city. Nowadays, cities tell us to recycle because basically, these companies have basically said, here, I'll give you money, you do the work, right? It's a petrochemical company. It's a chemical company.
DuPont?
Yes, DuPont. Yes, Beth, it's DuPont. If you click into it, you'll see this is actually from the archives of DuPont. So even that early on in the 1990s, you'll see that this ad is basically saying, don't throw plastic away, recycle it because it's very valuable. And now we know that that's absolutely bullcrap, right? And why is recycling not working? There's a lot of reasons, but you'll see that since like 10, 20 years, since it's basically started, on the next slide, on slide 4, globally, only 9% of plastic waste has been recycled and 22% is mismanaged. In developing countries, it's a lot more than that, which is why we see all these awful pictures of trash piling up in rivers, in the ocean, on beaches, in unmanaged landfills. In the US, you can see from this OECD study from 2019, that it's still a very small percentage, that turquoise color recycled, the very end of these bars that we see. And there's a lot of reasons why recycling doesn't work. We've already said there's no second market for it. There's no true second market. The downstream product is not valuable enough. And it's a very poor quality. So what happens with plastic when it's recycled is that it degrades, okay? And this doesn't happen with glass. When you recycle glass, it is still the same quality. When you recycle aluminum and metal, it doesn't lose its quality. It doesn't lose its integrity, so to say, the material integrity. But plastic does. So it becomes a worse product. And that's why you can't really recycle even the best plastic. You can't really recycle it beyond 2 times. And most plastic that is recycled is only recycled once. So that plastic water bottle, soda bottle, milk jug, whatever, when you throw in the recycling, I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying know that the end life of that, the end destination is always going to be the landfill, always, or worse, oceans. Because again, it can be recycled into maybe another plastic bottle, although most of the times it's downcycled into something worse. So recycling actually technically means that the material can be made into the same material or a material of equal quality. Glass into glass, metal into metal, cardboard into cardboard. Eventually, it's not good enough to be cardboard. But plastic, that plastic bottle, it's very rarely recycled into another plastic bottle. It's mostly downcycled into filling for like shoes or like carpet, fibers, or like filling for backpacks and padding and things like that. So that's downcycled. And so recycling for plastic is even a misnomer. It's truthfully downcycled. That's another reason. And then another reason is just that it's very resource and people intensive. Like you gotta sort it, you gotta clean it, you gotta collect it, you gotta separate it, you gotta shred it, you gotta, all these things with plastic. So this 9%, like people say, oh, we'll improve. And that's what the companies will tell you. Plastic companies and beverage companies, oil and gas, and you'll see an example of it later. They'll say, no, but we have new technologies and we'll improve this. And, by 2050, we'll get to 50% recycled. This number has been consistent since plastic recycling was pushed onto the consumers. And it's been like 30, 40 years. So this is the reality. So here's on the next slide, there's a quote here from a VP of Exxon at a 1994 conference with American Plastics Council, which is a trade group, okay? He said, we are committed to the activities of recycling, but not committed to the results. So that's why I would almost call recycling plastics greenwashing, because again, it's not really recycling. It doesn't work at scale. There's no down market buyer for it. And again, this shows that at the highest levels, petrochemical companies knew that recycling was just something they were doing for for the looks of it, but not because it actually worked. So how can we spot greenwashing? I think you all are probably a lot very knowledgeable about spotting greenwashing. Here's a couple of examples. This right one is like it's just one of those things that like a consumer actually opened up this bottle and inside is plastic, right? This is like obvious, but there's a lot of not so obvious greenwashing. So for example, presenting a hidden trade-off or the lesser of two evils. So I'll give you an example. Fast fashion companies saying this garment was made with, recycled fibers. First of all, that's incredibly vague. And second of all, you're just saying that a portion of that. So how much of that and where do those recycled fibers come from? Like that's just giving you a trade-off, like, oh, you're gonna buy clothing, buy something that's a little bit better while ignoring the fact that the whole fast fashion industry is completely toxic and awful for the earth, right? Another trade-off is like a hidden trade-off is, oh, you're gonna buy, you have to buy soda anyway, so buy from Coca-Cola, which is making bottles from 50% recycled plastic. But the fact is they're still promoting single-use plastic instead of going to aluminum or going back to glass, which is what the company has done for 100 years before they actually switched to plastic, right? So it's not that they don't know how to do it. It's not that they don't have the infrastructure for it. It's that they don't want to, because it's cheaper and easier to throw it onto you, the consumer, than to say, okay, we'll take the glass and clean it like we used to, and you buy the glass bottle, okay? And then other misleading environmental imagery. So obviously green is a big one. You'll see green on all sorts of bottles. And so our brain has been trained and hardwired to associate green with something better. So it's not your fault if you fall for something like this. Just know that this is a tactic that these companies use, right? So what about
Adriana, let me,
yes,
if you will, please let me get in here for a second. I'm looking at the clock. So let's move into two things. One, any more specific questions that anyone has, but also
okay.
Recommendations that you might make about what we can do aside from using glass, aluminum, etc.
Yeah,
Are
absolutely.
there organizations, etc.?
Yes, yeah. Let me jump right into it. So on the 8th slide, the last one, the individual things that we can do, I think a lot of you know and probably are already doing, reusing things when you can, avoiding single-use plastic. So this is the biggest thing I tell people, because again, we can't stop buying computers, okay? I'm not saying throw away your computer. I'm saying try to be aware of your single-use plastic. So take your own straw, take your own fork. When I go to restaurants, I take my own little aluminum box and I take my takeaways there. If I'm outside and a Starbucks or a coffee shop doesn't accept my reusable coffee mug, I'll just forego it. It's one day, and then at home I'll have that. A lot of coffee shops now accept your mug, so try to find ways to cut out single-use plastic. And then the other thing is what this group does on the climate crisis is we're trying to work for system-wide change, right? So right now there's a global treaty to end plastic pollution happening right now, and they're actually having a global conference on it. I believe it's in Canada, and it's at the end of this month, I believe. There's various organizations advocating for this. I've written 3 of them. World Wildlife Foundation. There's a coalition called Plastic Pollution Coalition, Break Free from Plastic. These are all global advocacy groups that are working towards this global treaty. And what this global treaty, part of what they will do is hold producers accountable. So they will require producers to reduce their single-use plastic, to actually pay enough money for managing waste, especially plastic waste in third world countries, which is rampant. We don't see it a lot in our country, but plastic waste is a huge problem in other countries. So there's various items that they're going to push for, but this is the first truly system-wide change that various coalitions and including governments are pushing for. So go there, look at what you can do, sign the treaty, take a pledge, and tell your friends. So this is what I would leave you with. Yes, do things in your own life, but of course we need to push for system-wide change, because otherwise just, me foregoing a plastic straw is not gonna, it's not gonna save the world.
Oh, Adriana, thank you so much. Chip, you have a question. Go for it.
Yeah, Adriana, I actually really appreciate your presentation. Thank you. And it all resonated with me. I had two questions. You actually skipped over your second to last slide, which I think is an important one because that's a massive ad campaign. So that's one question, if you want to just briefly elaborate on that. My main question has to do with technology. You've got a commitment in laws, both voluntary norms and in laws around the world now, to commit to practice plastics recycling with new innovative methods, that are trying to reshape things. And I'm just wondering what role you think with artificial intelligence in terms of sorting, and with some of these startups that are doing innovative things to reuse plastics. I just wanted to, do you have any thoughts on the potential?
That's a great question, and I'm glad you asked, because since the recycling program started, people have in industry groups have always said, we'll have better technology, it'll get better, we can improve. And I know there's technology, I can't remember the name of it right now, but essentially there might be better technology, but it still comes down to two things. One, plastic degrades in the recycling process, no matter what you use, because that's just how plastics are made. I'm not a chemist, but I've looked into the actual chemical component of plastic. And the fact is that the way it is made, it degrades when you go through the recycling process. And there's no recycling process currently that doesn't degrade plastic. So even if you can have a better technology to recycle it, it's still a lower grade product that eventually will end up in landfill. The other thing is, we have great technologies. Guess what? New technologies cost a lot of money, and it takes years, decades for new technology to become massively used, and for the price to come down enough to be brought to scale, right? Think of solar energy. 10 years ago, very few people could afford solar. And in a span of 10 years, it's fallen to a point where it's almost on par with coal and other, electricity produced. So yes, there might be new technology. The fact is, most of them are not, but they're not truly technologies that will make plastic truly recyclable. But the other thing is, it's going to take years for any of these technologies to really come online and make us a difference on a mass scale. In the meantime, we're literally drowning in plastic.
Yeah.
And you reject the second to last slide promise from the American plastics folks for what reason?
What is it?
The second to last slide you had, that massive.
Oh, yeah. So when this report came out, this guy, Ross Eisenberg, just this year, he's from this trade group. He said, America's plastic makers have set a goal for all plastic packaging in the US to be reused, recycled, recovered by 2040. So I just want to say that this promise has been made for the last 40 years. What makes you think that's going to be different for the next 40 years? Yeah. Given that plastic is a material that's made to be thrown away, and it degrades in the recycling process. So this is one of their playbooks, is just to promise, delay, empty promises, delay, and these are their stall tactics. So empty promises is greenwashing. And by the way, Coca-Cola has said the same thing, Exxon has said the same thing, and now they backtrack because their profits are taking a hit and because the economy is a little bit shaky. And before they said, oh, we're going to go carbon neutral by 2030, and now they're like, oh, maybe it'll be 2050. So all those empty promises are greenwashing.
Thank you. Yeah. Brian, did you have a comment, question?
Sure. Yeah, really quickly. I know the Break Free from Plastics bill is a federal bill, which from what I've researched and seen, it seems like that would be a big step forward due to having states such as Texas saying that Dallas can't ban plastic bags because the state has overruled that. So if we can get federal legislation, and one other thing that, I know that Texans for Clean Water was working on, which seems like it could have some legs, is having a bottle refund deposit, such as they do in California, Michigan, Washington, Oregon, where you can start to, I know that recycling is not the answer, but once you can start collecting and keeping those out of our waterways and our trash systems, there is a possibility of having the economies of scale. So then we can have an investment from a national type bill into how to create a Adirondack chair out of plastics, recycled plastics. I know right now the chairs that you can make out of recycled bottles are like $10,000. But if we can get that economy of scale, have federal legislation, there might be some legs with that, hopefully. So yeah, break free from plastics looks like our best
Yes.
chance.
Yeah,
do
so
that.
that legislation was introduced, I think, in 2019, both in the House and in the Senate. It kind of got nowhere. So right now it's still kind of like in limbo, I think, because there's so many, obviously in election year, there's just so many other bills. So officially, yes, what Brian said, there are actually bills in our government that have been introduced to curb production of plastic and manage it and all that. When that comes up, support it. Call your senators, call your representatives. But right now, I think that's kind of in like no man's land, is my understanding. Yeah, but if you want to know, it's called the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Bill.
Excellent. Adriana, you are wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you were
Thank
here.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything you shared with us and your passion and your expertise. You go, keep on keeping on. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you so much for having me. And I know this group is, doing so much already, and there's so many issues tied with climate change. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to tie in plastic. And if you ever have anything you want to discuss or questions, or you just want to come see me at the farmers market, I'm always happy to talk about it. And if there's anything I can do for the group as well, I'm in the newsletters and I kind of keep up with what you all are doing. Let me know, please. I'd be very happy to support in any way I can.
Hey,
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, Michael?
real quick, hey, Adriana, did I see on your
Yes.
website you're going to be at the Oak Cliff Earth Day Sunday?
Yes. Oh, yes. I will be there this Sunday. So come
so-
by and say hi.
So any
Yeah.
of us that are going to be there, or anybody else we know that are environmental weirdos like the rest of us, send them to her table, right?
Yes.
Because
Yeah, just to say hi. You don't have to buy anything, because I know you all are doing things in your own lives that I'm sure are already helping to a better planet. But yeah, just come and say hi. And if you have any other questions, or you want to cuss out the oil companies, I'm always up for that.
Yeah, come and
Awesome.
see us too. We're going to have our own booth, so come and see us as well if you get a
Yes,
chance.
absolutely. I will.
Great.
I will.
Wonderful.
One second.
Wonderful. Thank
One
you.
thing.
And Adriana, you're welcome to stay on for the rest of the meeting. If you have to go on to the rest of your life, that's fine too. Again, thank you so much. And I look
Thank
forward to continued work with you. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you. I think there was one more thing from Jayashri.
Jayashri, I just wanted, can you share your contact in the chat, please?
Yes,
your email?
Yes.
Thank
I'll
you.
type it in right now. Thank you very much. I will stay on to hear the rest of the meeting, but I'll turn my video off. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Adriana. Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, Lauren, with everything that we just learned about the issues that the new alternatives to plastic are going through, do you still want to share would you like to share what these companies are having to go through to develop new products? That's a better way of saying it.
I know we need to boogie on time, so I'll share it really quickly. Also, thank you, Adriana. On the subject of just supporting businesses that are good for the environment, I think as activists too, we need to at least be aware of some of these companies and know the difference between greenwashing and what is actually, a good product, a sustainable product. One that I came across recently in the bioplastics industry, which is, a small market share of the industry, but it's a growing share. And I think we want to put our money where our mouth is, you know, supporting these companies that are doing it the right way is absolutely the right way to go. And also, on the other hand, being aware of the ones that are not doing it the right way, you know, we need to kind of hold them accountable. So a few that I came across recently are companies that are actually doing products, what is this, with bioplastics. So this one is called BPACs. So they are making their products out of tree bark. So it's a replacement to petroleum-based rigid containers. I can share their info in the chat. Tree bark from timber production normally goes to waste. So they use the leftover bark and combine it with other biomaterials like coffee grounds to create pellets and sheets that can be used to make packaging. Another one is Eco Roots that use packaging from mushroom mycelium. Traceless uses leftovers from agriculture and food production processes to create a plastic alternative. And Not PLA manufactures a fully compostable packaging with coating made from seaweed, 100% natural seaweed. So I'll put some of these in the chat if you're interested, but I've, you know, on the subject of supporting businesses that are doing things the right way, Adriana mentioned this is a very small part of the plastic alternative industry, but good to kind of keep an eye on these guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. Jan is going to give us some information about local events and share some of the stuff that she learned at her training this past weekend. Jan, your 10 minutes starts now.
Yeah, 10 minutes. I'll compress that. 3 days of packed info. Well, the climate reality. Sorry, I was looking at my notes. Climate reality training was amazing, and I can't compress it into that much, but I can tell you there was a huge delegation. It was 3,000. I think it's the biggest one they've ever had. We filled up the Javits Center, the big fancy convention center in New York, which was super neat. And Al Gore was right there, and he was so much of the day. I've had so many people say, "Oh, did you see Al Gore?" Or I heard Al Gore might be there. And I'm like, well, yeah, he was kind of the whole show. He had a long presentation every day, and then he would moderate panels in addition. And the guy is just tireless. He's so energetic and witty, self-deprecating. I could listen to him all day. And he was so respectful of the other experts. He would give people so much credit and let them have their say. He's just a wonderful person in general and so knowledgeable. So it got everybody really pumped. We had breakout sessions. We had nonstop, information overload. And there were a lot of concurrent sessions where you had to choose between up to 5 topics to go to. There was hardly any time in between. They didn't even have bathroom breaks. It was kind of like, there was not a whole lot of time to schmooze with the other people, I have to say, but I loved what little bit time we had for meeting. The vast majority of people were there from the tri-state area. There were, I think, only a handful of Texans there. We had one breakout session where they grouped us by region, and I believe there were like 6 people at the Texas table. The good news is 2 of them from Dallas I met and told them about our group here. A couple from Houston, one lady's from Galveston, and from Corpus, and she was looking for a group to join, and I connected her with our dear friend Alex Holland, who's down there, at Galveston. So that was all great. What else can I say real fast? The luminaries included Michael Regan, EPA administrator, state senators, and local politicians from New York. Property Brothers, do y'all know that show? Jonathan Scott is a big leader in climate reality, and he moderated a channel, and I was like, oh, this is worth the price of admission too. He was so great too. He told his story. The most moving was probably 3 women from Appalachia, and I used to live in Pittsburgh, which is Western Pennsylvania. Close to there, they have a lot of coal mining, culture in the old school, and they've converted to fracking. And these women told the harrowing story of how they've been activists because they have their own cancer alley. It was very sad to hear. This lady was saying, people don't even realize they've lived there for different generations. They don't even realize that not everybody dies of cancer, because pretty much everybody there dies of cancer. and they have been through so much defamation. One of them had a gunshot through her windshield. She found, you know, her car windshield had been shot. One of them went to see a public official, like her city council person or something, and he literally spit on her. And this is what those people endure. And when I heard all these stories, I just thought, well, you know what? I can certainly get off my duff and go give a presentation at my little church, or, you know, do some small things, because these people are just really, you know, fighting with their whole selves. So that was totally inspiring. I don't know what else to tell you in such a quick time, but I could talk to y'all. Come and see me at Earth Day, Oak Cliff Earth Day, and I'll tell you more in person. How's my time? I've got to talk about 2 other events.
You got about, oh, just go for it.
Okay, no worries. This Sunday, y'all, Oak Cliff Earth Day, please come out and say hi if you're around. I know it's the most busy weekend in the entire year because there's so many events, so many people have conflicts. Totally understand, but we have a great group. We have at least 2 people per shift, you know, so there'll be 2 at the booth at any time on Sunday. The hours are 12 to 5 for the public. I was assigned the time of 10 a.m. I have to check in at 10, and we're supposed to set up from 10 to 11. I guess that's just to pad it to make sure everybody's ready to go, because the thing starts at 12. It's a lot of fun. It's very good for families if you've never been. They had like dancers, music, they had food trucks. It's a beautiful, cute little park with a lake. So really a fun thing. And I also think, since there's no big exposition this year for EarthX, this is kind of it. This is probably going to be better attended. So that's my pitch. Oh, I'm going to be getting, tomorrow I'm supposed to receive the swag. We're going to have little postcards as handouts. And I also got some business cards printed, and I'll be getting those to everybody eventually. We all need to keep some in our wallet in case we're out and about. I could have totally used that over the weekend because I was recruiting. It's so handy. And guess what I picked up? I don't know if you can see this. There were bookmarks from Climate Reality on the swag table. So I stole a few. I got a little small stack, and they're super nice. We talked about making some of these as a handout, but they were like crazy expensive from where I looked up. Maybe in the future we'll find something cheap, but we decided to go cheap with postcards. And Lauren was super helpful, instrumental in getting the design, like inspiration across. And I can't wait to see them tomorrow. Okay, so that's Earth Day. There's still a sign up sheet if anybody else wants to pull a shift, or just, if not, just show up and say hi. Finally.
Awesome, Jan, you did great. And I want to give you a big shout out for coordinating and facilitating Oak Cliff.
Oh, thank you.
You go.
It's a process, no problem.
Really
I have
awesome.
to tell you more. I have to tell you more because EarthX is also next week, starting Monday the 22nd. Now, EarthX this year, there's not an open expo. It usually is. But it costs like $300 a day to attend. So for regular people, that's not possible. But if you volunteer, you get in free and you can attend these sessions that day. They need volunteers Tuesday through Friday. I think actually Monday through Friday, but some of the shifts are filled up on Monday. There's a huge list of different jobs you can sign up for, and I'll post the link to go there. And I have a couple of handouts I can either email you guys or put in the chat here. But basically look at the programs for each day. Anything you're interested in seeing, sign up for that day, and then you can volunteer to scan people coming in or be at the info desk or something like that. They sound like pretty short shifts, pretty easy work. Also, there's going to be a screen set up outside at all times for the public to view all of the proceedings. So I think that'll be really great. I probably would be best to just put all this info into an email and send it to everybody. But that's the basic idea. I'm planning to go probably at least 2 days. One tip, I found out that on Friday, the choral ensemble Verdigris is going to give a program for the attendees. They're going to do some selections from their piece Dust Bowl, which is not the most recent, but the one before, which was amazing. I tell you, I saw it. Their entire season was all about environmental issues, and EarthX was a big sponsor. So I guess this is their little contribution. So if you happen to volunteer on Friday, look for that. I'm hoping I can see it, or that volunteers will be able to see the entertainment, because that'll be for the last day. That is all I can think of to tell you for now. So
Awesome. Thank you, Jan.
so thank
Awesome. Congratulations. Good job. And now we're going to turn to Perna English, who is visiting us from National. Hello, Perna. And yes, good. You're unmuted. Awesome. Whoops. I still can't hear you, Perna.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, got it.
Headphone error. Well, hello. I just want to thank you all for having me. I don't often get to join chapter meetings, but it's just great to see what you all get up to. What a fantastic speaker. And it's just like really, really great to hear, how you all come together, the updates that you share. Yeah, I often interact with a few people. So nice to see some of your faces. So for those of you who I don't know, hello, my name is Perna. My pronouns are they, them, and I am the Midwest, Southwest, and Rocky Mountain regional organizer. I work with the 22, I believe, chapters across our region. And I also had the privilege of getting trained in New York. So I was going to share a couple of takeaways, but Jan, you covered it beautifully. And I also couldn't agree more that it was just really, really energizing. I honestly thought Al Gore was hilarious. He was enjoying the stage and but reinvigorated, and his presentation, totally updated. And I found, I've listened to part of it before, and those of you who have been trained will know, it's a little bit doom and gloom and depressing, but I was really inspired by the focus on the hope, the solutions, and the direct correlation with the work of the movement, in the ramping up as the speaker talked about, of solar power, almost being neck and neck with fossil fuels at this point, as a direct result of the work that you all do. I guess a couple of things I can share numbers wise in terms of graduates from the training. We had 2,342 graduates. Wow. The session with our regional breakout that Jan was at, that's great. I think we had something like 80 or so people there. And let me tell you, that first day, we got a little bit behind on the agenda. And so I thought that was a great showing for the final session pretty late. We ended at like 7:30 or something like that. Yep. But great conversation. I can share that so far we've had people voluntarily opt in to chapters rather than automatically opting them in. So so far we've had about a quarter of US participants who have joined chapters just since the weekend. So you all, DFW has 3 new members. Let's see, 4 new members for Houston and 1 for Austin. So those should be new, engaged, excited folks in your state. Let's see. I guess that's pretty much all I just wanted to share with you all. You can always, I'll put my contact information in the chat. I do often interact with chapter leadership, but I'm always here to talk to any of you, bounce ideas off of. I spend my days, I'm privileged to spend them talking to folks like you. So I do my best to take good notes, first of all, and listen well, and file away that information. So if you have projects you're working on, I can often think of someone who's working on something similar and connect you, and you all can, learn from each other's experiences. So yeah, that's all. Nice to meet you, and thanks so much for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Perna. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm thinking that anything that we do that builds unity with national, with a chapter, with the various chapters, can only strengthen us and serve us. So thank you so much for being here today. Awesome. I'm about to take us into wrap up. Let me ask if there's anybody else who has anything that they want to say before I do that. Yes, Jayashri, and then Michael.
So I just wanted to remind everyone, although I won't be attending, the city of Dallas hosts what's called North Texas Environmental Symposium every year. And it is at downtown, again, I'm forgetting the name. Earlier, our whole chapter, a lot of members would attend. It's free. All you have to do is register. Once I find the link, I was looking for the email. And you go, it's a wonderful, informative, and it tells you not only about our whole North Dallas, but also about Texas and other places, because it's attended by a lot of not only companies, but people who are working in the field, and it's really worth going. Last I attended was 2020, just before the COVID hit. So there were many of us who attended. It's beneficial. This time I'm not able to attend because I'm also involved in something else. I'll be there. That's one information. And second is our book club is meeting regularly. I know everyone is not able to attend, but please make and we try and feature such books that are informative. What Adriana talked about, I know Chip knows, we read books that informed us about all this, things that are happening and how greenwashing is happening, and from books. So books do provide you a lot of information, and you prepare yourself to deal with questions and counter the effects. So I would suggest do attend and do join. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jayashri is the treasurer for our DFW chapter. We've got a great leadership team. Jan is on the leadership team, Michael, and I've already introduced Chip and Brian and Lauren to everyone. Michael?
Yeah, just real quick about EarthX. One of the things that I'm concerned about personally, and anybody here may or may not share this, since we don't have a big expo this year and there are not lots of players just at all levels, and look, my world, the small solar companies that are, there's lots of them in DFW, they're not going to be there, right? There's none of that there this year. So if you look carefully, I don't know who else has studied the Congress of Conferences program. There's almost nobody there from 100% clean energy, for instance. The methane gas folks are there. And personally, I'm going to be calling out EarthX for continuing to give a platform for the methane gas folks. They've been doing this for years. Trammell keeps doing it. I don't understand it. Put them on stage with a good group of folks that can debate how fast we can and should, I posit, move to clean energy, but that's not happening. So I think I'm personally going to be, I've known the EarthX folks since day one. There's some wonderful humans there, but at the top level, they're still not, in my opinion, aggressively promoting, we got to quit polluting and wasting this planet because it's killing our fellow humans, period. And it's really frustrating to me because I'm in this business and I look at the agenda and go, where are my people that everybody else needs to see? They don't need to see me. They need to see some big dogs in this space talking about it. There's not the executives from Sunrun or any big, solar companies of any sort. They're not there. It blows me away in 2024. So I'm just sharing my frustration with my friends here in CRP. Whoever goes, see what you think, take some notes. We can compare notes later, but I'm really personally disappointed, but I'm going to show up Monday because that's the Clean Energy Day. And there ain't a lot of clean energy peeps and promoters on the agenda. It's going to dance around it, if you ask me.
Yeah, part of it was just that cost is prohibitive for normal people. It's 4 figures to go a week. Like, who can do that? Yeah.
No, also I want to say, Michael, my interest in EarthX went down after I discovered it is funded by ConocoPhillips. So why would they invite anyone who will counter?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. It's more greenwashing, isn't it? And Michael, thank you so much for being there and being an advocate. And Michael is going to be our speaker next week, and he's going to talk about everything solar. We will also be getting an update on our strategic planning for this group. And so that's the third Wednesday on
I think you said,
May 15th. Chip, yes. Go for it.
I just wanted to correct, it's next month, right? Not next week. right?
Oh, did I say week? I hate it when I do that. I know
Although we
what I
could
wanna
listen to
say and
Michael a
some-
lot. He could do it every
Oh,
week.
my heavens. I know what I want to say and something else comes out of my mouth and I don't even hear it. Golly gosh. Is that akin to walking into a room and not knowing why? It may be. Yes, I'm talking about our meeting next month, the third Wednesday of every month,
May. Perfect.
which will be May 15th. Now we're getting ready to wrap up. I wanted to say hi to Patricio. You were one of our volunteers last year. If you can show up at Earth X, that would be great. And let us know in the chat if you can. So Jan can get in touch with you and coordinate that. And or
Yeah.
Jan, if you feel comfortable, you can put your email address in the chat. But I remember you from last year, Patricio.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
volunteering then.
Now,
All
just
right,
to
Yeah.
be clear, Beth, I'm not coordinating the EarthX volunteers. I'm just going to give you
No.
all that, but I'm coordinating the Oak Cliff Earth Day volunteers.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. Yes, I really meant what was coming up this weekend. Okay. I think I'm taking a look. I think we're at the wrap up. Go for it, Chip. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, before you wrap up, I just want to say kudos to you and thanks so much, Beth, for managing this complicated agenda in an efficient manner in a short amount of time. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Chip. Thank you. I appreciate the acknowledgement. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Beth. Yeah, I remember you last year, and I gonna be at the Anatole. I sign up through my work. We're gonna be participating as Mike in my agency. I work for DART. But I can, I don't need to be with DART all the time. I can also join you guys. So, but is somebody gonna be at the Anatole or nobody from our team? It's gonna be only, yeah.
Well,
Where
Michael
you-
will be there Monday.
Wear your pins, people.
Oh, good point. Yes. Good thinking. Patricio, Michael will be there Monday. I'll be volunteering. I'm not sure what other day, a midweek and then probably Friday, but frankly, haven't decided yet. There might be somebody from our group.
Good.
So
Excellent.
yeah, we can coordinate. I can definitely help through the week because I'm probably gonna be several days there.
Oh, fantastic.
And yeah, also for the Oak Cliff, I will be also trying to help there.
And just
Oh,
to
fantastic.
clarify, Patricia, we won't be having a booth. They won't be doing booths, but some of our people are going to be there and it
Yeah.
would be great to connect with you.
Yeah,
All right,
I
good.
think we should
Lorna,
share the
thank you
phone
so
numbers
much.
or something like that. Mhm.
I gave
Okay,
my
so-
email address for
Yeah.
the Oak Cliff Earth Day. If it helps.
And I
Yeah.
think I have Patricio's email. I can connect y'all. Unless you want to go
Excellent.
ahead and pop yours in there, Jan. And also before we sign off, Lauren, can you stay on and show me how to do the save chat? I have a new computer and something has changed and I can't find where it is. I used to be able to do it and I don't know how now. So if somebody could teach me how to do that.
I can help you.
Or- Yeah, I would appreciate it. Okay, good. So here is the official wrap up. And again, it's gratitude for this extraordinarily beautiful earth. She is being as flexible as she can with all that we are doing to her. And she loves us. My gratitude to her and to all of us here who love her and are working on her behalf. Our meeting is officially closed.